We all have phones with cameras. Now we're all professional photographers. Really? Here is a professional photographer, Herb Ascherman Jr., a skilled craftsman with decades of experience.
Hi, I'm Herb Ascherman. I'm a photographer, and I'm about to give you a tour of one of the most beautiful little gems in the city of Cleveland. Come with me. This is my library. This library has 2,300 and maybe 87 or 88 books on photography by photographers. Over 1,500 are first editions, and over 1,000, come this way, with these little blue dots on them, are signed by the photographers. So here's signed Ansel Adams, and signed Kappas, and signed Kappa Negros, and signed Abe Franlick, local photographer. The library is divided into several sections. This area over here, the massive side, are all monographs. That means one subject by photographer or by subject. The area back here are collections. Fashion photography, photographs on India. Alfred Stieglitz has a file over here of over 100 books. Stieglitz is my mentor. These are all 19th century books. These are books on the Italian Renaissance, which, as you well know, is the origin of all Western thought. My favorite collection down here are shelves on cameras and shelves of photographic encyclopedias, which with every change in the photographic wind, you publish a new one because of new information that's seen or discovered or revisited or revised. So they're always fun, and no two of those books agree. This section over here are all publications that I've been in since the late 60s when I first started photographing. These are all unfiled. Some of them need to be cataloged. Here's a section of Cleveland. Here's a section of Jewish books. These are the gems of the industry. They're hand printed by a photographer in Toronto named Tarosian, who actually has a letterpress in which here's an open one, hand makes the books, hand binds the books, hand copies the photograph. This happens to be Edward Weston. And all of this is raised letter type. He sets the type in a linotype machine and prints anything from 100 to 200 different volumes, dates them and numbers them. These are extremely collectible and really the gem of a photographic book collection. So this is the place of solace. This is a place to go to for rest and responsibility and regeneration and understanding of all that has come before. The problem with 99.9% of photographers who are under 40 years old is that they think that they have invented the process. They don't know anything about film. They don't know anything about hand printing. I work in platinum, which is a process from 1897, and I hand print my photographs, each one being a 2-hour process. So to understand what's in this room is to understand the history, the visual history and the historical history of what photography is, where it came from, and how it exists today. Questions?
So you are a photographer. So what is your style of photography?
My style of photography is a little bit of everything. If I see a book and I enjoy the book, the old saying that the highest form of flattery is imitation. I will go out and I will work in that style of that photographer until I've expressed myself or until I've exceeded the boundaries that photographer has set for me by his or her work, or in case I just see something else with a different whim. But my existence, my entire commercial background of 50 years as a professional in Cleveland has been as a portrait photographer. And I enjoy people. I'd rather work with something that talks back. The world doesn't need more pictures of flowers, landscapes, or kittens. Certainly not. And in my career, I've had the pleasure of working with the Cleveland Orchestra for 20 years, for example, as their portrait photographer. So I have seen the best of the best who have treated me as peer and invited me into their private environment of practice and of playing and let me explore that as a collaboration with them. I don't take the approach that I am the photographer and you are the subject. I've never used the word model. I've always used the term collaborator, because unless it's from the person to me, it can't be from me to the person.
And then you have categories, like you just mentioned, the Cleveland Orchestra, but you also have the subject of the country of India.
I've been to India 5 times over the last 15 years. I was invited to come and exhibit my work by someone who had looked at 500 websites in the U.S. and picked me out. I was at a convocation of 65 Indian photographers, 34 European photographers, and 1 American. And he designated me as being the one whom he would like to emulate. He invited me, I came, I spoke. Since then, I have helped him found Photo Muse, which is the museum of photography, the only museum of photography in India, and have been very close in a incredibly affectionate relationship with this man, this doctor, and his family. And he has been become obviously one of my closest friends and one of the finest photographers in his own right in all of India. So I have loved him for decades and respected the relationship and the fact that he has opened his heart and his home to me as a guest.
And then you also have the category of Native Americans of South Dakota.
Years and years and years ago, I became enamored with the work of Edward Curtis, who photographed from about 1905 to 1930 over 180 different Indian tribes in the West primarily and up through Canada into Alaska, etc. And I decided that I can do the same thing that he did because he worked in platinum as well. So I was extremely fortunate to have met a young lady who was a very prominent photographer in Minot, North Dakota, of all places, who helped introduce me into the Native American communities, which allowed me to spend over 60 days, over 3 summers, photograph over 750 portraits of Native Americans, which will go inevitably, eventually, to the State Historical Society of North Dakota through a friend of mine, Shane Balkowicz, who lives in Bismarck and has photographed American Indians, Native Americans on wet plate, which is a process from 1852 for the last 10 years. So he and I have become extremely close friends, and he has opened many doors to me in the Native American community in North Dakota.
And then Paris, France has been a topic.
Paris, France, je t'adore. In 1982, we had a studio on Coventry Road in Cleveland Heights, and a young woman walked in, a friend of ours, and I said, "Where you been?" She says, "I was in Paris." And I said, "But I saw you last week." She says, "I went for the weekend." And I'm thinking, my God, I can do that. So my wife, Christine, and I went to my aunt, the travel agent, and we booked flights, and we got to Paris, and I had the foresight, because I have run a photography gallery in Cleveland since 1977, incorporated as a nonprofit, to send a letter to Jean-Claude Lemonnier, the director of the Bibliothèque Nationale, the great library of France, which is also the largest photographic collection, one of the largest in the world. So we wrote him letters and said that we're coming, we're going to do a show of French photographers. We get there, he lets us into the archives. 4 or 5 hours later, we emerged with a list of photographers, and he said that on the first name, he says, oh, this is Paul Morer. His wife, Francois, was an interpreter. She's half British, whatever. And you should meet them. So we went over there, we met them, we fell in love with them and their aesthetic immediately. So since 1982, Paul Morer has been one of my closest and dearest friends. And as a consequence, I made 30 trips to Paris to visit him.
Wow. And what's one other category of photography that you've taken over the years?
I photographed over 100 nudes.
Yes.
Well over 100 nudes, men and women, couples, combinations, whatever. And what intrigues me is not only the elegance of light on the human body, but of the personalities of the people that I photograph. I call them portraits of people without their clothing. So they are hardly pornographic, and they are hardly intrusive, and they are hardly commercialized. And the compliment I get most was, God, that's a Renaissance painting. Because in my studio, I, as my progenitors in the 19th century, use only available light. And as such, I have a bank of windows on the west side of the building, so I photograph in the afternoons. And the beauty of my studio is that 365 days a year, the light's different. So every time I walk in there with a collaborator, I'm challenged to produce something elegant given what I have. So my photographs are always titled, Photograph Herbert Ascherman, Lighting by God.
Mm-hmm. And then you like Jamaican music. That's how I came to continue to be friends with you.
Well, now this is interesting because back in the day when you were just a mere child,
yes,
photographers had several things in common. They all smoked Camel unfiltered cigarettes. They all had long shaggy hair and beards. And they all liked reggae music.
Oh, interesting.
And I became very enthralled with the local reggae community. We became friends with them. I did album covers with them. I did photographs of them. And I still, to this day, enjoy reggae music as one of my favorite musical streams.
If you listen to reggae music on the radio here in Cleveland, did you have a favorite announcer?
Well, there was a guy on WRUW named Rich Lowe who, and I forgot the name of the program that he always gave, but I was always made sure, because the radio in the house is in the basement, I was always, and the basement is where my darkroom is for Platinum, I always made sure that I was down there working during those hours of the Rich Lowe show.
Oh, sweet. Good one. And then one recommendation for people where photos are involved. Because everybody's taking photos with their cameras these days. Well, what should they know? Herb Ascherman Jr.
The phrase is, what's the best camera to own? And the answer is the one in your hand.
Oh.
And now that everybody owns a camera and photography has become ubiquitous, even too much so, it's very easy for someone to take an image and to keep that image and protect that image, understanding that every third Thursday the program changes and the platforms change. And if you don't download your photographs from your phone, and I have a friend with over 14,000 photographs,
yep,
you're going to lose it.
Yeah.
The phone dies, they're all gone. So the caveat is, this is wonderful. Download onto your computer, put them in the cloud, put them someplace where they're not going to disappear, or make prints.
Okay.
I prefer to make prints. That's why I work in black and white, 4-letter word, starts with F, film, and that's why I print in both silver gelatin in one darkroom and platinum in my other darkroom.
Thank you, Herb Ascherman Jr. We'll see you next time.
You're always welcome. We're not a lending library, but we always have guests and visitors.
Cleveland's Herb Ascherman Jr., a portrait photographer for the Cleveland Orchestra for over 2 decades, and he's done photos and exhibitions in India and Paris. Join us here for a tour of his library and his thoughts on photography. Herb Ascherman Jr., the man himself.